Good to see you tonight. Thanks for being here at Hedgerow. And tonight we are so lucky because we have the author of the chapter that we read, which was an amazing chapter, don't you think? Thank you. So thank you very much, Rhonda Miska, for joining us this evening. I'm going to give her a short introduction. She's got degrees in pastoral ministry, also pursuing a DMin, right? Wonderful. And has worked in social justice and pastoral care for a long time, currently works at St. Timothy's in Blaine, has been involved in the Discerning Deacons movement, and this is not the first book that her work has appeared in, so you can find her writing all over the internet in different online publications and newspapers and magazines, as well as other compilations. There's 2 others that I know of. Is there more than that? 4? And the thing that I think is really cool is that Rhonda has a real passion for preaching. Yes. And also not only preaching herself, but supporting other women in preaching, which I think is amazing. So I think we'll get to experience a little bit of her talent for speaking and presenting tonight. So thank you very much for being here.
All right, thank you, Andrea, for all of your running around and making 15 different screens and cords all work over the last half hour.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and also friends in the room, just one, because of our tech issues, the sound in the room, we're doing it a little differently tonight. So we are, all the sound, rather than going through the system like it usually does, is going to be going through this machine. So it's not going to be quite as loud as it usually is. And also this machine picks up every single little noise in the room. So if you're rustling papers or if you're having a side conversation, they're going to hear it and they won't hear Rhonda as well. Okay. So just try to keep as quiet as you can. And I know that's not totally possible, but just be aware. And folks on Zoom, if you're having issues with the audio, just let us know. Thank you.
All right, so I am delighted to be here. I was teaching at St. Kate's last year, and so I had this tradition of leaving St. Tim's at 5 o'clock and driving down to this part of St. Paul, and so I just felt like I was back in that routine. So I am here this evening to talk about Sister Laura Vicuña Pereira Manso, a living saint of the Amazon, green saint of the Amazon, small s saint. So what I have planned this evening is some shared prayer. I have some things to share, and then I also want to invite all of you to hear from all of you. I'm just delighted that you all have been reading this book for the last however many weeks. It was published last year and received some awards from the Catholic Press Association and from Orbis, our publisher. And so it's exciting to know that it's out in the world. November is especially the time when we think about saints and remember saints during the month of November, the end of the liturgical year. So it seems like a fitting time to gather. And also, you may have been aware that the COP conference is going on in Belém, yes. Brazil, gathering to talk about climate change and climate justice. So it is always a timely topic that feels particularly timely. So I want to open with a poem by Wendell Berry. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Wendell Berry. Probably, okay, a lot of Wendell Berry fans in the room. I thought that would be the case. So I just invite you to receive these words. Maybe sit back. If you've got things in your hands, just kind of come to a place of resting. Feel your body in the chair. Maybe just take a good deep breath to kind of let go of the day thus far. Aware of the presence of one another in the room and on Zoom, and aware of God's loving presence. The peace of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief, I come into the presence of still water. And I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So I invite you in your imagination to just go to a place that captures some of this peace for you, a place of beauty, and sense what it is to be in that place. The sounds, whether it's moving water or birds or animals, the feel of the air, a cool breeze, or a crisp wind, or warm sunshine. The life that surrounds you, the smell of the air. And offer a silent prayer of gratitude for this place. And for all beautiful and sacred places where we are nourished by beauty and drawn into connectedness. Amen. All right. I asked Andrea if she felt like I could open with a song, and she said, yeah, we haven't done that, but I think so. So we're going to open with a song. This is by Serena Partridge, who is she's local to the Twin Cities, a singer and a songwriter and a song leader. So I'll sing it all the way through and just listen, and then I'll sing it line by line, and we'll go that way. You can see the words there, and also you can see that is an image I took at Minnehaha Falls, which for me, in that little prayer exercise we did, that is one of my places. My first here in the Twin Cities, I live just a few minutes walk, and so I would go and see it all 4 seasons, see it frozen solid in the winter, and then thawing out in the spring, and rushing after a heavy rainstorm, and more of a trickle when it was dry. So I shared that image just to offer you a little picture of one of my places in creation where I enter into that connection. So I'll sing this all the way through, just listen the first time. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the root and the seedling. And I am coming home, and I am coming home. I'll sing a line, and then I'll invite you to sing it back to me. So call and response. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the root and the seedling. I belong to the root and the seedling. And I am coming home. And I am coming home, and I am coming home, and I am coming home. Let's sing it all the way through together, and I hope people on home and Zoom are singing along on mute too. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the root and the seedling. And I am coming home. And coming home. One more time. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the root and the ceiling, and I am coming home, and I am coming home. Thank you. So one of the reasons I like to bring songs is I feel even if you don't remember anything I say or anything we talk about, maybe you'll remember a line of that melody and a few of those words, and that sort of helps unlock. And it's like part of what carries the grace, I think. And these are beautiful words. We don't yet have snow, but we will soon have snow, to which we belong, I have no doubt, here in Minnesota. So this evening, rooted with that little prayer exercise of our place in creation, where we're grounded, rooted in this belonging to the natural world. I want to also, that to be our frame as we enter into the life and the work and the ministry of Sister Laura Vicuña Pereira Manso. Please let me know, raise your hand if you did have a chance to read the chapter. Okay, it's okay if people didn't, totally fine. I didn't want to assume that everyone had. So I'll offer a little bit of background as well for those who haven't had a chance to read it. But I also wanted to give you a chance to hear from Sister Laura in her own voice. She is not an English speaker. She speaks Portuguese, she speaks Spanish, she speaks several different indigenous languages. But she preached for Catholic Women Preach, which is a website where we have, I want to say since 2017, for every Sunday and for every holy day, women from around the English-speaking world have preached on their readings. So we think that I'm on the advisory board, we think it's the largest collection of women's preaching that there is, that we know of, which is exciting. So I think this will work. I'll pull it up on YouTube. We didn't do this ahead of time.
I'm just going to hold this
Okay.
in back to catch a little more sound.
Okay, hold on. I don't know how do I make this bar go away so that I can actually type this thing in? You know what I mean?
Or you can drag it to the bottom.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Thank you for your patience. We were doing other tech things in our setup time.
So many.
Yeah. There we go. And there's advertisements. Now, do I need to turn the audio on my computer now?
No, if you share the sound, when you share, like you go, have you clicked that little box that says share sound?
So I have to go back into Zoom.
You might have to stop share.
Stop share. Thank you for your patience.
And then go back to share again.
Share.
Click this little box.
Oh, yeah.
Then share. Even if you're muted, it should still share to here.
Hear anything?
Not yet.
We're on the right website.
Yeah.
We're seeing it. There we go.
Should I turn my volume up on my computer?
Oh, friend, how come you're not doing it this time?
Let's see here. Because I went into my settings and I turned my audio off and I have this all the way down.
Yeah. Well, maybe try now.
Okay. There is a little opening music. Oh, it screeches. I know. Where we got nothing.
Is the volume on? This one?
Oh, that's yes.
Do you think I need to go back into Zoom and change it?
Friends on Zoom, would one of you unmute and say something?
Sure, I can say
Oh, thank you, Marilyn. That's helpful. Okay, so that we just needed to make sure I knew the volume was working on the D10 and it
Yeah.
is. Oh,
We
but
can
fine.
hear you.
Okay. Not good. Okay, let's try one more thing. Okay, I'll try sharing it from my computer.
Okay, because
I'm
you're on the
also-
Zoom, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you've got a lot of things happening right now.
So maybe, do you want to tell people a little bit more about Laura?
Okay. So let me back here. All right, thank you for your patience. So we're going to see if we can pull it up on the other computer, which is also on the Zoom meeting. So Sister Laura Vicuña Pereira Matzo, who is a Franciscan catechist sister who serves in the Amazon in Brazil. And she preached for Christmas last year for Catholic Women Preach. So this preaching came out about 11 months ago. And we're going to trust that we're able to watch it. And as you watch it, we also have printed out texts of her preaching, I believe.
Yes.
So if anyone, she's going to be speaking in Spanish with the English subtitles. But if anyone is unable to read the subtitles, we do have Andrea printed out handouts with the words. Wait, how are things going?
Oh, there she is.
I see her. Do we hear her?
Okay, that's a good sound.
Paz y bien. La celebración de la Navidad nos pone delante de la vulnerabilidad y a la vez en la grandeza de Dios que se hace pequeño, asumiendo la condición humana en un espacio periférico. Los sueños de grandeza, de poder y de tener a menudo nos alejan del sentido primero y original del llamado que el Creador nos hace, que es su imagen y semejanza. Tenemos ante nuestros ojos, oído y corazón el misterio de la encarnación de Dios que quiere establecer un encuentro con nosotros, como en el desierto con Moisés. Un Dios que ve, oye, siente y se conmueve por el dolor de su pueblo. Por eso se inclina para habitar nuestra humanidad. El misterio de la encarnación nos muestra al Cristo cósmico, donde toda la naturaleza es testigo de la revelación del Emmanuel, Dios con nosotros. ¿Cómo esto resuena en nuestros corazones, en nuestras mentes? En la celebración de la Navidad estamos invitados a contemplar a quienes son personas de paz, personas que anuncian la paz en un mundo de tantos conflictos y tan intolerante, donde todos los esfuerzos son para competir, para tener más, para hacer más, en detrimento de una multitud que sufre los efectos de las guerras, el hambre, el desgobierno y la falta de políticas humanitarias. Un niño pequeño y frágil es llamado de príncipe de la paz, que trae buenas noticias a los olvidados, excluidos de los grandes centros y esferas de decisión. Bienaventurados los que anuncian la paz, porque trabajan incansablemente por la justicia, que se traduce en acciones muy concretas, que es tierra, pecho y trabajo. Estas acciones dignifican a mujeres y hombres. El profeta Isaías nos llama a creer en pequeñas acciones en lugares periféricos. Estos promueven cambios extraordinario sobre la paz de la tierra. No perdamos la esperanza en la fortaleza de los pequeños y más pobres. Los arrogantes usan la fuerza, los pequeños mantienen la esperanza. Por eso son capaces por alegrarse de pequeños gestos y los pequeños logros. Emmanuel, Dios con nosotros, es fiel y camina con nosotros a nuestro lado. ¿Cómo definir la grandeza de Dios? La encarnación de su Hijo. Juan nos invita a leer los orígenes, el Génesis. En el principio solo existía el Verbo creador. El Verbo estaba con Dios y era Dios mismo. Qué manera tan tierna y al mismo tiempo tan poderosa de describir la encarnación. El Creador nuevamente en el movimiento de inclinarse extiende su tienda y se encarna en un lugar concreto. Recordando aquí que la tienda marca el lugar teológico de la itinerancia, del lugar social, que son innumerables periferias que el Papa Francisco nos invita a abrazar. Son periferias existenciales, sociales, económicas, culturales y muchas otras. La invitación a contemplar el misterio de la encarnación es para todos y todas. Para algunos será motivo para reafirmar el camino que Dios está con nosotros, no nos abandona y camina a nuestro lado, mano a mano, codo a codo, siendo el sol de la justicia y príncipe de la paz. Otros quizás el mensaje llegue como un desafío a cambiar hábitos de vida y consumo, como un llamado a trabajar por la justicia y la construcción de la paz. La palabra, al humanizarse, nos interpela a todos, a todas, sin importar nuestra posición, nuestros ministerios y nuestra condición social. La palabra Jesucristo es una invitación a vivir en la luz para quienes están en tinieblas, liberación para los encarcelados, vida para los que viven en situación de muerte. Él, la palabra hecho gente, humano, nos desafía a trabajar por la paz y la justicia, por dignificar a las personas que viven en las márgenes, pero también a cuidar a nuestra madre tierra. Recuerdo la figura de Juan Bautista, que vino a preparar los caminos, y María de Nazaret, mujer joven y sencilla, que asumió esta gran misión de hacer realidad la encarnación del Hijo de Dios, el Verbo hecho carne y humano, que se insertó en nuestra vida. Mientras estamos aquí celebrando la Navidad, la palabra hecho carne, los prepotentes siguen polarizando el mundo con sus ideologías de muerte, de intolerancia. Mientras estamos aquí celebrando la Navidad, siguen las guerras, Ucrania, Gaza, contra la Madre Tierra. Mientras estamos aquí celebrando la Navidad, hermanos y hermanas siguen haciendo rutas migratorias, huyendo del hambre, de los gobiernos crueles. Mientras estamos aquí, mujeres, negros, indígenas, jóvenes, idosos y niños son muertos simplemente por no encajar en el mundo de los poderosos. Mas como yo les digo, la muerte no tiene la última palabra, porque mientras estamos aquí hay manos solidarias que sanan, que limpian las heridas de muchos. Y mientras estamos aquí hay mujeres y hombres llevando comida a quienes están en la calle. Mientras estamos aquí, manos generosas tienden cariño y afecto para quien ya no tiene nada. Mientras estamos aquí, personas se unen para cuidar a los pobres, cuidar a la tierra herida, porque ellos creen en un Dios hecho humano que dio todo. Invito a todas y todos a sermos constructores de paz, de justicia, de respeto a la diversidad y a mirar y contemplar a Cristo pobre y frágil, envuelto en pañales en un pesebre. Contemplemos el misterio de la palabra, realización humana. Dios se hizo humano para que nosotros pudiéramos experimentar en nuestra vida la divinidad de Dios. Una feliz Navidad para todos y todas.
So I felt like one of the best things you could experience would be to hear her voice and to witness her way of being, beyond what I can say. Maybe, is there anyone who needs a copy of the transcript who wasn't able to see the subtitles? Just raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, we've got a couple people. Yeah. Yeah.
Raise your hand again.
Yep, if you want a handout. So I want to give you a chance all to respond. And even if you couldn't read all the subtitles, I feel like you get a sense of who she is. You get a kind of the feel of who she is and her energy and her presence and her personality there. So how do you have the Zoom people share, Andrea? What's the best way to do that?
I
Break
will.
into breakout rooms, or
Do you want people to be talking at their tables, or do you want to do a large group conversation?
I was gonna have people talk at tables. Yeah.
Okay, sure. How long do you want the conversation to be?
Yeah, let's take about 7 minutes, just, turn to, it looks like we're all in groups of 4 at our tables. And so my questions for you are, what resonates from her preaching? And particularly, she talked about God's greatness and God's vulnerability. And also more broadly, just what is your sense of Sister Laura, having witnessed her preaching? So we'll take 7 minutes together. And Andrea, you're making breakout rooms, right? Thank you. Feel like I'm really making you work tonight.
It's good. It's good.
Oh, if I can, you invited me to join a room.
Oh, yeah, just ignore it.
Yeah, can I pull up my screen? Oh, I need to share my screen again so that they can see.
Most of it I could read,
You
yes.
won't be able to see in.
Because I've got that's okay.
Okay, I shared to the chat, and I'll broadcast the question as well.
Sure. I have them on my screen as well. I have a slide.
It's on the
The
front.
thing that hit me was when she
Yeah.
showed the problem.
I invite you to wrap up your conversation for the next few seconds here.
And this child,
Okay.
and I guess that's why so many nuns are sisters of St. Joseph. He's kind of, the ideal man. He keeps his feet on the ground, but he listens to his dreams,
No, it was
a lot of
beautiful.
All right, so I'm
heroines in
hate
that
to interrupt
story.
everyone, but I'm
Think
gonna
about
gather us back. And can we see, can we change it? Yeah, you're working on it, so you'll be able to see the Zoom people. Yeah, Andrea's getting your steps in today. So thank you for entering into conversation. I just want to invite, whether it was something you said, whether it was something that you heard someone in your table, your small group say, just what bubbled up for you as you watched Sister Laura preach and you reflected on her message together. And Zoom people, feel free to just come off mute, and if you're in the room, I'll come to you with a microphone. Yeah.
Well, we talked of God's vulnerability and bringing to light. This is Carol, by the way, for those on Zoom. Re-emphasizing incarnation or God with us, and not so much the greatness of God in this instance, but the vulnerability of God. And we were talking of, she said, small actions in peripheral places provide extraordinary changes on the face of the earth. And that brings it to 2025 for me, rather than thinking back to the time that Christ was born. It reminds us of to think about who God is with us now.
Yeah, thank you. That emphasis on vulnerability. She's a Franciscan sister, and I also just think this is so deeply Franciscan. The emphasis on the margins and the peripheries, and the humility of Christ and the incarnation. Other thoughts or responses, either from our Zoomers or in the room? How about on Zoom? If you'd like to share, go ahead.
Should probably go back over here.
No?
Stand in my square.
Okay, maybe not on Zoom. How about in the room?
Lord, people.
I am struck by, maybe it would be the theology of incarnation, in that I didn't grow up understanding incarnation. Days, months could go by and I would never hear such a word. And then in my young adulthood, I was writing curriculum. And so here we are in John, the word became flesh. And it's like, oh, that's incarnation. What a wonderful, rich concept. Why do they call it incarnation? Nobody understands. I think for me, it was carnation instant milk. That was the carnation, or the flower. So it's just kind of my musing of our faith and the power in the transformation. It's so exciting, but it's like too many of us, or I guess speaking for myself, we're oblivious. And the word made flesh, okay, I can get that, but incarnation, so it's a life of befriending, this big word.
Yeah, I think it works better in words with languages that have Latin roots, like French and Spanish and Portuguese, because incarnation, like carne, if you ever think of like chili con carne, like chili with meat, like it is God becoming flesh, God becoming carne, right? And so it to me, it has more, it feels less abstract in other languages, but yeah, in English, it's just a big multisyllabic word that feels really abstract. Yeah. Yes, there's a.
For preaching,
I have to wonder to whom she is preaching, because I felt it was a theological lesson in a way, rather than, well, it was also an expression of everything, but it was given in an intellectual tone, I think. And reading it doesn't help.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's important to note, Spanish is not she was speaking in Spanish. Spanish is not her first language. I don't think it's her second language. So I'm guessing that's why it seemed a little more formal, and she had it written out, because it's not her native language and not the language that she uses in everyday community and ministry.
Yeah, and I don't know that a regular church people might follow along and be inspired by that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was beautiful, I mean, wonderful lesson and words, but I don't know how inspiring it would be to people in the pew.
You have a comment over here?
And then Kathy's going to speak, and then Barbara, you go next, okay?
What I was thinking is that it was her presence and her size, her simplicity, her soft voice, her, all of those things that conveyed the broader picture of what she was trying to say to us about it's the little things, which is what we said at our table too, that it's the little, the Christ being a baby, and the little things that we do can translate to all time, and it just seemed like she seemed little. And Mary Laura, she talked about her sitting down. Was she sitting down?
She was sitting down, and she's very short. Like, I don't know if she's 5 feet tall. She's short.
Right.
She's one of those small, like, fierce and energetic, but very small.
And I was thinking the power in the chapter about what she's been doing out of that little personage is amazing.
Thank you for that comment. Yes. Barbara McElwain online, please go ahead.
Okay. There's also the call to us. I mean, the theological message was quite profound and quite large in terms, she kept saying, while we are here. And when she spoke of incarnation, she always spoke of it in terms of, we are here now, and we are the incarnators of peace and justice. So peace and justice was repeated so much. And the word incarnation, and we are the ones that are here now. I thank that little lady.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you for that, for engaging. I realize it's challenging, with since she's not speaking in English, to follow along with the text, but I thank you for entering into it. I'm going to share my screen again. So a little bit more about Sister Laura now that you've had, as much as possible, the chance to meet her, the chance to experience her person and her presence and her energy and her words. So I first met, and I wrote about this in the book, I encountered Sister Laura through Discerning Deacons. So I've been involved with Discerning Deacons, an organization that is seeking to grow the conversation about restoration of the diaconate to women in the Roman Catholic Church. And I've been involved since the very beginning. And some of our leaders made connections with women in the Amazon. We definitely wanted it to be broader, and we knew that it was out of women religious that this question of the restoration of the diaconate to women came. It was a group of women religious who met with Pope Francis, I want to say in like 2015 or 16, something like that, and brought it up and to him and named it as a concern, because like where Sister Laura is in ministry in Brazil, her congregation was specifically founded, the Franciscan Catechists. It's written into their constitution that they're only required to receive Eucharist once a year. And the purpose of that is so that they're able to go out to places where there aren't priests. They're able to go out to places that are very remote and very rural, where there isn't a church, where there isn't a mission, and be the presence of Christ and be the presence of the church. And so, when we think about ministry in that context, a place where, most of us, if we want to go to daily mass, if we're willing to get in our car and drive 10 or 15 minutes, we have our pick of places and our pick of times. So thinking about places that see a priest once or twice in a year, and lay women and women religious really are the presence of the church. So that is Sister Laura's congregation. And she grew up in a community that was served by the Franciscan Catechist sisters, and she speaks very powerfully, very similar to the way that she talks about the incarnation. God walks with us hand in hand. And she saw the Franciscan Catechist sisters walking with people and journeying with people and sharing life with people. And she said, that's what I want. And she joined her congregation when she was 13, which they don't let you do that this early in the United States, but I guess they have different rules in Brazil. And she's also very influenced. She speaks very movingly about her mother, Raymunda, who is elderly and not in good health, but still alive. And her mother is what's called a rezadora. So rezar in Spanish and in Portuguese is the verb to pray. So like a woman of prayer or a prayer leader. So not, any sort of official ordained role, but her mother is someone that people would come to, women who are dealing with infertility or women who, people who are grieving. And so this sort of grassroots pastoral care. So Sister Laura grew up watching her mother offer that sort of grassroots pastoral care to women in this community. So she's her whole life with her mother, with the sisters, has seen women's spiritual leadership. And that comes through very strongly. Sort of my core idea after I interviewed Sister Laura and read all these different things about her, I thought, how do I wrap all this together? And the image I landed on was a braid of 3 strands. So you have women's leadership, care for creation, and indigenous sovereignty. And those 3 things are braided together, and you can't unwind that braid. Those 3 things go together.
Could you say those again?
Yes. Indigenous sovereignty, women's leadership, and care for creation. And I think, I go into more detail in the chapter. And this work of accompanying Indigenous people in caring for creation, which, again, you can't separate those 2 things. I asked Sister Laura, why is it important that, because I wanted to hear her explain it in her words. Why is it important that Indigenous people be the ones on the land, caring for the land? And it was a really striking moment for me, where it really was like, oh, Rhonda, you're a white Westerner that lives in the suburbs, and you're talking to an Indigenous Amazonian woman. Like, it was one of those moments where it wasn't a language thing, it was a worldview thing.
Yeah.
Because her understanding is that there's not a separation between the people and the land. And so this question of why should this particular people group be on this particular piece of land where they've lived for generations, you can't even have that conversation, because it's sort of saying, like, my hand is over here, but I'm over here. No, like, they're all connected. It's all the same thing. And so we have this, it was a very striking moment for me in the conversation, because I realized the look on her face, like, oh, she sees a connection between people and land that maybe intellectually I agree with, but it isn't operative in my life the way that it is for Sister Laura. So you can't, and the Amazon Synod document says that as well, that we can't separate, Indigenous people from care for the land. And you will not be surprised to hear that there are many threats to the land and the people in the Amazon by primarily big corporate interests, mining, rubber tapping, agriculture, forestry, and in many cases, the land is protected. There are laws, but as we know, laws aren't always enforced. And just because laws are on the books, sometimes, in terms of corruption and politicians and law enforcement people that can be bought, that kind of thing. So what Sister Laura does is essentially, be a presence with these people who are seeking to stay on their land. And she's worked with multiple people groups around Latin America. She's currently working with the Cariri people in northeastern Brazil. And their first contact with non-Indigenous people, this particular group, was in 1978. So when I think about our history here in Minnesota and the Dakota War and Fort Snelling as an internment camp and all of this history, like this is happening in our lifetimes in Brazil, that there's Indigenous peoples. And for me, that just really captured my imagination of there's an opportunity to do things differently now. Can we learn from the period of colonization? And can we find a different way to engage and to relate to Indigenous people and to think about what evangelization means? And that was a lot of the work of the Synod on the Amazon. And Sister Laura was present as an auditor at the Synod on the Amazon. So if you appreciated the chapter and you want to go deeper, I really encourage you to read both Querida Amazonia, which is Pope Francis's document that came out of the Synod on the Amazon. You can find it all online, and also the final document of the Amazon Synod, which was held in 2019. Really, really powerful work. So, yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to say how timely it is, because today on NPR I was listening to, and I wish I had caught her name, but it was an Indigenous woman speaking about the lack of voice they have against big corporations that are looking to, this related to, I think, planting of soy. And the destruction of the rainforest for that kind of farming. And it just brought to mind how this all goes on very right now.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you heard echoes of that in her preaching, right? Like the powerful and the arrogant, who are kind of, seeking their own benefit, right? You had your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, this is happening in northern Minnesota, near the boundary waters, and some of it affects, native people who are doing rice, growing rice, and there's lots of threats from these international global companies to get mining rights in various parts of northern Minnesota.
And Alaska.
And the U.S. House representative up there, Stauber, he's in the U.S. House. He is supporting all of those efforts. But anyway, there's been a lot of legal action in the state to try to keep these multinational companies from coming in here and doing that kind of mining up there.
Catherine,
copper sulfide mining or something. I don't know what they
Go ahead, Catherine.
You got me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think I've told this story before in these classes, but I'm going to tell it again because it's really appropriate. A few years back, when the Minnesota Historical Society started naming historical sites with Indigenous Native American names, my local representative, Mary Kiffmeyer, put a bill in the state legislature to have them stop doing that she thought it was inappropriate and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I called her up and I left a message that I'd like to talk to her about it because I thought it was very educational and it would enlighten people. And that's what the Historical Society's mission was. So a couple weeks later, she calls me at like 7:45 in the morning and wants to talk to me about this. She says, I understand, what your concerns are. And I said, yes. I said, I really think the Historical Society should be allowed to do this. And she said, okay, Kathy, first we got to get off on the right foot here. I want you to understand something. Maybe you don't know your history. She says, but when the American government purchased Louisiana Purchase and acquired the land, they didn't purchase from the Native Americans, they purchased it from the French. And so the Native Americans had nothing to do with any of this. They had, they were just, they were there, but they didn't own anything. They didn't have a government where they could prove that they had such a primitive form of government. They had no way to prove that they were citizens, that they owned anything. But France owned it. So that she says, really, the Native Americans are out of the picture. Okay, so then a couple months ago, I met up with Indivisible North Metro. Tom Emmer came to talk to the Big Lake Chamber of Commerce. It was you had to get invited, but I sneaked in with a couple other people. And Mary Kidmar was there, and they were talking about this exact issue. And her words and his words, well, we have to watch out for these people, because before you know it, they're going to want reparations and all this. So we just have to keep this in control of the people that run things. So this is very real. And these people honestly believe what they said about the Native Americans. They believe that. In fact, Mary Kiffmeyer in that conversation went on to justify why the people from England and Europe could go to Africa and capture people and take them as slaves, because the people in Africa were very much like the Native Americans here. They didn't have a form of government either. They couldn't prove where they lived. They were so primitive that they were just, you could just go take them, and they couldn't prove where they lived, who they related to, that if they owned or anything. And so actually, since they had such a primitive form of government in Africa, actually, when the slave people came to take them to the United States, they were offering them an opportunity to go someplace and be able to better themselves.
Oh, that's so disturbing. Wow.
Okay, now I'm saying these people believe this. This is what we're up against.
Yeah. And I think, again, that comment that, oh, well, they didn't have paperwork and laws and government to show who owned what. Again, that's operating out of a worldview where land and things can be owned, right? So it speaks to that. Yeah, do you want to make a comment?
I know we're getting a little off track, but I just pulled up a picture of the Louisiana Purchase, and much of northern Minnesota was not included in it. So Mary is worried about knowing your history.
I know.
Yeah, thank you. And I, Sister Laura has attended several United Nations gatherings of Indigenous peoples, and that's what she said is, it's the same story with different details and maybe different industries, but it's the same conflict of, is the earth a living sacred being to be reverenced, or is it, this thing that we exist on that we can take resources out of, right, for the sake of profit? And that is that clash. And it is, there's deep roots and there's history, and I think there's my sense in what was shared on Zoom, there's fear and there's shame behind that, right? Like, oh, if we have to acknowledge that something was wrong, all of the fear and the shame that comes with that. So it's easier to just say, no, this is the way it is. This is the way life works, because it feels too threatening, right? To address that. I was in Canada not long ago and had some conversations about boarding schools with some Catholics there, and some real resistance, right? Some real resistance to facing the harm, right? I want to move us forward here a little bit. I guess for those who read the chapters, does anyone have any burning questions or comments from the chapter or about Sister Laura before I move forward? Yes. I've got too many chords going on.
I just have a quick question. She learned so much from her mother, and her mother was a Rezadora. Does she consider, and you made the comment that it was a matriarchal passage. does she consider herself in that tradition as a Rezadora? I mean, I think that's the thought. When I read it, I thought your next sentence was going to be, and she's carrying on the tradition, and then you didn't go there.
Yeah. She didn't formally say that to me, but certainly in her work as a Franciscan catechist and, doing spiritual leadership. I mean, I don't know that it's a title that she claims for herself, but she certainly is moving through the world with that kind of, that spirit of accompaniment and prayer, and caring for those who are struggling and on the margins.
I'm guessing that's akin to the question you asked about ecology and her being, and it's like, why are you asking this question?
Well, yeah, it's also like no one's going to give you a merit badge or a certificate saying, you've achieved this, or, a trophy or something. It's, I presume it happens more organically. The other thing that's really striking that I talk about in the book chapter that I think is really exciting news is Sister Laura is part of SEAMA, which is the Consejo Eclesial de la Amazonia, so the Ecclesial Conference of the Amazon. Now that is ecclesial, that is not episcopal. So, we here in the United States, we have the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. They just met last week in Baltimore. And there is CELAM, which is the bishops of Latin America and the Caribbean. But in the Amazon, they have created an ecclesial conference. And it is a cardinal, a layman, a laywoman, and Sister Laura, and I believe another religious sister. And it's a shared presidency between the five of us. And when we talked, she was very insistent that, like, it's not like, oh, the cardinal's in charge and we're just kind of there to make it seem like it's, not hierarchical. She's like, we really are one presidency, and we move as one together, and we speak and listen together. Yes, Andrea. I noticed that Christy online had a comment. Christy, you want to go ahead?
Oh, I just wanted to quickly say that there was a quote in here from Pope Francis that I don't know if I'm going to say this right, the Querida Amazonia. Am I saying that right?
Querida Amazonia.
Okay. It was so touching. The land has blood and it is bleeding. The multinationals have cut the veins of our Mother Earth. I mean, that really was so beautiful. It kind of, for me, it kind of wrapped up what this chapter was all about. So,
yeah, yes, thank you for lifting up that quotation. And that really segues where I want to take us next, which is I want to bring Sister Laura Vicuña into conversation with Pope Francis, and also this is Joanna Macy. Anyone familiar with Joanna Macy's work? Okay, we've got a few people. And I think I was thinking of her because she passed away this past year, or a few months ago in the summer. But I think there's some resonance here. But again, so Sister Laura talks, the earth is a living being, the earth is she, and that's linguistic, in Spanish and in Portuguese, it's la tierra, but it's beyond just a function of grammar. It is the sense, the earth is, Madre Tierra, Mother Earth. She is a living being with whom we're in relationship. She can feel pain. She can feel joy. She needs to be cared for in the same way that, a child or someone who's hurting needs to be cared for. And Sister Laura spoke very powerfully that is the work of women. We care for life. And that is what she sees her role as. So she very much has a sense of earth as a living being. And that quotation, and when she shared about her first, I believe it was her first mission, or it was very early on in her religious life, she was sent to a part of Peru. What is the name of it? But it was a part that had really been decimated by mining, and she described it as a no man's land, right? Like the mining had come in and really left it in a state where no one could live. And her words to me was like, I felt that in my womb. I felt that. So this sense of like a physical pain of seeing Mother Earth being wounded, being harmed. And it makes me think in the Gospels, the Greek word, in the Gospels, when we see that, Jesus is moved with compassion, or in Luke, the story of the Good Samaritan, it talks about the priest and the Levite walk away. but then this other guy comes along and he's moved with compassion and he draws near. So the Greek verb for moved with compassion actually has to do with like you're, moved in your guts or you're moved in your bowels. So it's this sense, it's like a very physical image. So I find a resonance there between Sister Laura's language as she talks about her physical response to the strip mining, and then this way that compassion is described in the Gospels. And it very much aligns with the quotation that you shared from Pope Francis, this idea that the earth is bleeding, and as compassionate, loving people, when we see wounding, we respond. There's an emotional and there's an affective and there's a physical response to that. And this is where I want to bring in the work of Joanna Macy, just because I think I wanted to kind of, especially for those of you who already have read the chapter and are familiar with it, and I wanted to kind of give you something more than just tell you what I already wrote in the book. So Joanna Macy of happy memory was a translator of Rilke poetry. She was an eco-philosopher and a Buddhist systems theorist and an anti-nuclear activist. She and her husband worked for the Peace Corps in its early years in India and in different parts of Africa. So a really fascinating life. And she developed this body of work called The Work That Reconnects. She has got a book that's called World as Lover, World as Self. And she really, it's rooted in the Buddhist understanding of dependent co-arising, right? That everything is interconnected. And this is something that's so core in Pope Francis's thought. This is something we see over and over again in Laudato Si. This is something so core to the way that Sister Lauda sees the world. And I would presume many indigenous cultures see the world, that we have, out of the Enlightenment, we have a sense of separateness, and we have a sense of like, the scientific worldview of I'm going to come in and I'm going to research this thing over here that is outside of me, and I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to do a test, and I'm going to reach a conclusion, as though like I'm here and the thing I'm studying is here, right? And it creates this sense of separation versus everything is interconnected. Thich Nhat Hanh's term is interbeing. Everything is woven together. We can't pretend that we are separate from the earth, that we are separate from one another. So Joanna Macy goes as far as saying, and I think to me there's echoes of Teilhard de Chardin. I'm guessing we have some Teilhard fans in the room. Okay, yeah. I know Maya. I was like, I got that vibe. That we are the earth humaning. I am the earth Rhonda-ing. You are the earth Andrea-ing. There is this sense that, and granted, I'm recognizing you kind of moved from, Catholic theology and Catholic understanding, but I want to share it because I think there's some powerful resonance here. If we think about this deep reality of interconnectedness and interbeing and everything being related and all of us being in this complex and beautiful web of life, that we can't see ourselves as separate from that, right? And then we act accordingly. And if you like that, you'll like next semester's book. Oh, The Cosmic Vision of Teilhard de Chardin. It's great. Reading in the spring. Is that John Hott? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Joanna Macy writes, to be alive in this beautiful self-organizing universe, to participate in the dance of life with senses to perceive it, lungs to breathe it, organs that draw nourishment from it, is a wonder beyond words. And then I also want to share, and again, I put these three up here because it would seem like maybe they're coming from different worldviews, different experiences, but I feel like they end in a very similar place, right? As we're facing this kind of global existential threat of climate change, doesn't it make sense that the wisdom would bubble up from different sources and have resonance, from different corners? So this is from that final document of the Synod on the Amazon. Integral ecology has its foundation in the fact that everything in the world is connected. For this reason, ecology and social justice are intrinsically united. With integral ecology, a new paradigm of justice emerges, since a true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment, so as to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And there again, you have that sense of earth being, you have to be a living being in order to cry. Integral ecology thus connects the exercise of care for nature with the exercise of justice for the most impoverished and disadvantaged on earth, who are God's preferred choice in revealed history. And again, we're back to the incarnation and God becoming flesh and entering in the small, unexpected ways. And this is, I want another line from Pope Francis. This is from Evangelii Gaudium. We human beings are not only beneficiaries, but also the stewards of other creatures. Thanks to our bodies, God has joined us so closely to the world around us that we can feel the desertification of the soul almost as a physical ailment, and the extinction of species as a painful disfigurement. Does that resonate for people? Mm-hmm. I can get an amen?
Amen.
Yeah.
Are you going to advance? The folks online are wondering if they can see you a little larger. So if you're, are you going to be moving to the next slide next?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay. Now, can you see me? Is that good? I don't know what people can see on their screen. There's so many screens happening. Well, you can configure it yourself. So if you're online and you'd like to see Rhonda a little bit larger, try going to your view and pull the side-by-side gallery. You can pull the center screen over a little bit. Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. And so this is not any thinker. This is not Sister Laura. This is not Pope Francis. This is not Joanna Macy. This is just my thinking. But I thought this was a group that might want to go there with me. So you're gonna be the first ones to receive it. So there's this call in Laudato Si for ecological conversion, and that comes out in the Synod on the Amazon. And for me, when I think about conversion, again, if we want to go back to the Greek metanoia, this idea of turning around, when we hear in chapter 2 of Acts, right after the big Pentecost event, the tongues of flame and the speaking in tongues, and Peter gets up and he preaches. And then there's a line that says, the people who listened to him were cut to the heart. They were cut to the heart. That was the response to this spirit-led movement. And to me, that makes me say conversion has to deal with our emotions and our feelings and our affect, right? And often, I think our faith can really focus a lot on orthodoxy, right thinking. Okay, we need to memorize the creed and we need to think the right things and know the right words. That's often part of our formation, especially when we're younger. There can also be an emphasis on orthopraxy, so right action, kind of doing the right thing, caring for others, being kind, being loving, being generous, caring for creation. And I want to say that I think that a piece of this ecological conversion that for me really resonates, and I think is also present in each of these three thinkers, is this idea of orthopathy, so right feeling. Because when we truly feel, right, like I think of when Sister Laura described seeing this land in Peru that had just been wiped out by mining and describing her grief and describing the physical experience of it. When I think about Joanna Macy, who learned, as she was learning about nuclear pollution and the length of time that was going to impact and the number of generations, right? There is a deep grief. And that grief is, I would say, good and holy, and it's part of that ecological conversion. Because if we are really as interconnected as we say, of course we're going to feel what the earth is feeling. Of course we're going to feel, and this is an image I gathered, we are going to be cut to the heart. And just take a moment to take those images in. Wow.
So polar bears on melting ice caps, desertification, increased wildfires, the changing of the shoreline, storms that are stronger and more intense because of warming ocean waters. Let's just hear what stirs in your heart and your mind and emotions. What are your, body sensations as you take this in? Are you cut to the heart?
Terrified.
It's terrifying. Yeah, there's fear, there's sadness.
Just like, what is that poor bear going to do?
Yeah, what is that poor bear going to do, right?
And what's that farmer going to do?
And what's that farmer going to do, right?
And will that firefighter come out of there alive?
Yeah, will that firefighter come out of there alive? So I'm sharing all of this not because I'm wanting to take us into this really horrible place together, but because I think this is part of being alive and being faithful in this moment, is having our eyes open to the reality and feeling what we feel. Andrea, is there someone on Zoom?
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just thinking, yes, it looks terrible, and it is terrible, and it is scary, and it takes you aback, it makes you sad, like she says, in your gut. But the truth is, Mother Earth, no matter what we do, is going to be here. It may drastically change. So basically, what we're concerned about is how we maintain it the way we are used to it and the way we want it. So it's kind of complicated, because even if all these things change, I mean, the Earth has been here since the dinosaurs and before, and it's undergone climate change before. Mother Earth is going to be here. We just don't treat it like we think we want to continue to be here with Mother Earth. So we are really clueless. That's
For sure.
Thanks, Kathy.
I mean, it's just like, and well, anyway, so I mean, I've thought about that before, that we are so stupid with what we're doing, because it's like, get a clue. I mean, the Earth is going to be here no matter what. And it's not all going to die off. Something will be there. It'll all change. Okay, it'll change. It won't be the same, but we won't be here. So what are we doing? What are we doing anyway?
Yeah, the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and humans have been here.
Yes.
An eye blink of that, really. Right? Did you have your hand up?
I think.
I've been reading another book with another group of people and talking about grief. And really, we grieve when we're losing something that we love. So grief and love are sort of connected, and lament, it's sort of a lament and love. They sort of go together, I think.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. That's something that Joanna Macy says as well. She talks about despair work, and that we only feel despair if we're losing something we love. So this is the image of what she called the spiral work. So starting with gratitude, starting with where we're resourced. This is an image of Joanna Macy's work. Honoring our pain, right? So that orthopathy, that grief at what has been lost, or what is being lost. Seeing with new and ancient eyes, and then going forth. And I would say, as a Catholic, this sure looks a whole heck of a lot like the Paschal Mystery, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah. I want to take us back inside just for a few minutes and offer a little bit of an embodiment practice. So I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable, settle into your seat. We've spoken a lot of words. We've heard a lot of words this evening, images. So just take a moment to be with your breath, feeling it coming in and out. With your own breath, thinking of God's breath in creation, breathing across the waters, breathing life into human beings. Thinking of Jesus breathing on his disciples. And think as well of the plants and the trees that are outside this building that are taking in carbon dioxide and letting out oxygen. As we take in oxygen and let out carbon dioxide. So with your breath, see if you can sense relationship with them. The ease, the dance, the back and forth of what is being given and received. And sense also the other beings in this room with you. All the different things they could be doing on a dark Monday night. And they've chosen to be here to consider the green saints, to think about what it means to live faithfully in these times. And think of that whole communion of saints in the present and across time, who have loved God, loved one another, loved Mother Earth. This great cloud of witnesses that surrounds us. Just allow yourself to rest in that sense of community with all those living beings. And together let us sing. I belong to the woods and the water. I belong to the sky and the snow. I belong to the root and the seedlings, and I am coming home. And I am coming home. Now let's sing we instead of I. We belong to the woods and the water. We belong to the sky and the snow. We belong to the root and the seedling. And we are coming home. And we are coming home. We belong to the woods and the water. We belong to the sky and the snow. We belong to the root and the seedling, and we are coming home. And we are coming home. Thank you. I just want to leave you. I don't want to give homework, but if you want something to continue to reflect upon, this is an image in Rhinebeck, New York, and it's meant to convey the 7 generations. So in various indigenous traditions, there is the sense of thinking about the seventh generation. So that would be 210 years in the future. So your grandchildren's great-grandchildren.
Have
And so
you
if you-
seen that?
I have not seen it. I got it off Google.
It's so beautiful.
Isn't it powerful?
It is. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So it's a visual of the seven generations. So it's just maybe something to take with you with all that we've shared tonight, what you've heard about Sister Laura and her ministry, our discussion of the incarnation and orthopathy, and imagine what your desire is for that seventh generation. And then if you want to even go further, if they were to write you a letter in whatever technology exists for letter writing in 210 years, what do you imagine they would tell you about your efforts for justice and peace and the integrity of creation? What does that seventh generation want to say to us? We're in this period in November when we pray for those who've gone before us. So we think about our ancestors, but thinking about the ancestors that we will be for the generations yet to come. What do those generations want to say to us? Just something that I offer for your continued reflection. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much. It's wonderful being with you all. Thank you, Andrea, for all your hard work and making all the things happen on all the screens with all the cords and buttons. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Everybody, I think she deserves a
That river in the back is the Hudson River. In case you didn't-
And we do have a little raffle. I mentioned that I'm on the board of Catholic Women Preach.
Hurricanes.
So we have some.
Here on,
I've got too many boards. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We have these purple bags.
Oh, that's.
So we don't have enough for everyone. So did folks put their names in a hat or something, or how did we do this?
We had a few people sign up for it,
Okay.
so you won.
Okay. If you wrote your name down, you won a purple bag.
More.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I'm happy to stick around. I want to wrap up to honor everyone's time, but I'm happy to stick around and chat more if people would like. Yes.
Is there, can we go on YouTube, or where could we find the Catholic Women?
Catholic Women Preach. Yep. Mhm.
You just dial it up on YouTube? And
Yep, you can go to YouTube, type in Catholic Women Preach. You could also go to the website and find it there, the biography of the preacher, the video, and the text. And there's also a great search function. So it's like if you're going to give a reflection on a certain piece of scripture, on a certain feast day, it's a great resource. So yes, question.
Well, and you can have it sent to you every week, the link.
Yes, you can sign up.
So,
You
I
can
mean,
sign
you
up.
don't have to remember it. I've been using it probably since the beginning.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you.
But yeah.
Well, thank you, Rhonda, for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week for our last in-person class. And it's going to be a fun one. It's still a little up in the air, so we'll see what happens. Exciting. Thank you to all those on Zoom. Good night.
Next time are we?
Thank you.
Is it going to be
The time after.
I am.